The Salt Fire started by lightning on August 25, 2011 in the mountains of the Salmon Challis National Forest in Idaho. The fire season had been slow to arrive due to cool and wet conditions earlier in the summer. The forest here is a thick, decadent stand of mostly lodgepole pine and subalpine fir. With high crown density and abundant ladder fuels, the area is mapped as high to extreme crown fire risk. Add to that 30 to 70% of the lodgepole is dead because of the mountain pine beetle, and you have the potential for extreme fire behavior. By the morning of the 29th, the fire has grown to over 1,600 acres. The Type 2 team is already in place, managing multiple ground and air resources with more incoming. The main effort is concentrated on holding the southern part of the fire, Division Alpha, and building line on the western part, Division Zulu. We sat down with some of the firefighters that were there that day, who experienced when time runs out as a fast-moving fire takes away their options.
The primary ops on the team had been on, kind of flown that fire from, he was up there doing some air attack work and had flown it from its infancy. So he'd kind of watched it progress and grow. And, you know, he's like, it's not, you know, Greg was really good about, hey, I saw this thing start, you know, I've seen what it's done every day. You know, there's a lot of fuel out there on the ground, but it doesn't really, you know, it's not making any big runs. It's just backing around and skunking around. But I think we all knew the potential was there. We didn't know when it was going to do its thing.
It looked like it was wanting to burn, but not really burning. And I remember talking to you, well, maybe it's, you know, because it was really wet, record winter up there and late snow, and
it was all wet down in Wood Tick, boggy down there.
It was a big wet bog, and I was like, man, it's looking like it wants to do something, but it's not really doing anything. But at the same time, everyone, like you said, everyone's been there and seen fires on that forest, you know, go gigantic, you know, in a short amount of time.
It was mostly underburn up to that point, backing off of Moyer Peak, but extreme potential, man. I mean, like, you know, a lot of moss, subalpine, a lot of dead stuff, just a lot of potential, but hadn't seen the fire behavior up to that point.
But I don't think any of us had underestimated it with as much air that we had to put in with the engines and the crews on the ground. I don't think we underestimated its potential.
Yeah, you could look at the fire at 10 o'clock in the morning and there'd be 1 foot flame lengths, 360 degrees around it. So it was having no problem burning, backing, which is pretty rare, you know, to see that much fire behavior, even though it's low intensity, that early in the morning.
Right, it looked very much like the southeast, you know, where you've got like that continuous leaf litter and a perfect, you know, everything is available. It's very much like how it was there.
Just getting the south flank and trying to hook the west end, it was pretty high resistance to control with the retardant, and a lot of helicopter work along the whole flank. And without the people and the air team, we probably wouldn't have held anything. And that was before the conditions, and the ERCs were high, I think almost every day, but the conditions, terrain, wind, ERC, and fuel bed didn't line up like they did late on the 29th.
The resources assigned to Division Bravo initially are the Idaho City Hotshots with one Skidgen building a contingency saw line along the head of the Wood Tick Creek drainage, tying it into Road 020, then plumbing it with the idea for possible burnout in the future.
We were just trying to get something set up where we could corral as many of the spots as we could, because we knew, like Brian was saying, we knew that we had spots right outside of Moyer Meadow, and you could look down into Wood Tick and see spots. So we were trying to get as many of these corralled as we could and to get a good, decent line to work off of for later.
So we looked at Dan and I talked about going direct down into Wood Tick a few times on the 28th, and just pretty much chose not to, just because lack of safety zones, and it was super thick, heavy fuel, and just hard to get any intel down into Wood Tick at that point.
Trying to support an underslung line and that stuff, I knew we weren't going to get heavies in there. It's going to be iffy for seats. It's on the lee side, the general lee. I was happy you weren't going down that hole.
Most resources are able to drive to Moyer Meadow and stage, but the switchbacks along the way are too tight to navigate for a truck with lowboy trailer hauling a dozer for work on the southern and western flanks. Its truck and trailer park at a good flat spot in the trees, and the dozer walks in.
You know, this is kind of that transition period of initial attack getting ramped into extended attack with, you know, like we say, a lot of resources coming in. And as you came in the 020 road and you saw, you know, where things were on the initial attack, you know, a few things really stuck out in my mind, which was where we started to make the parking area here. There was a lowboy transport backed into the trees there with, you know, trees touching on all sides. I mean, it was just stuck in there enough to get the equipment off, and then he was way out here working this south piece, you know, a long ways away from that. So, you know, immediately you see that, that's a red flag. That's like, hey, we're getting a lot of equipment in here. This piece of equipment is already parked right here. Let's make this a parking area, a turnaround area, you know, something for when folks are coming in, they can at least get turned around here, you know, and get out. So when I was kind of driving around there and first thing in the morning, you know, drove back this little road into the Squaw Board Meadow, saw that. Todd Cam, dozer boss from Alaska, showed up. I gave him a briefing.
We'd already been about 4 hours into the process of getting in there. They were wanting to make a parking area for those transports. It was, you know, up on a ridge top. It was a lot of dead lodgepole in it. Kind of sat in the X type thing with the main road coming into it on one side, and then there were two tracks going out of the corners of it, you know, in either direction. One of them down to that Squaw Board Meadows, and the other one off to the southeast, I think it is. There
were, you know, a lot of folks coming in. Almost all of them, you know, were coming through this road, heading to other divisions. So it was a lot of kind of, seemed like I was doing a lot of traffic duty too, because people would come up and go, hey, you know, we got to go here, we got to go there. So it was a lot of kind of steering people to different places. It was starting to get really busy, plus assorted camp folks coming in, dropping off hoses and pumps. And, you know, it seemed like once that parking spot started getting made, people just started funneling towards it. You know, I'd come by that parking spot and there'd be, you know, a bunch more people. You kind of go, man, who are those guys? And you have to get them lined out, because, you know, you make a parking spot, people are going to start parking there.
And then at some point, we're still cutting indirect line. I hear on the radio, I hear somebody ask if it's a safety zone up there. And I believe the quote was something like, it's not a safety zone yet, but we're going to keep pushing it till it is one. That's what I heard. And from then, from that point on, it was a safety zone. Everybody from Jeff to Ops to everybody was calling it a safety zone. And not necessarily saying it was a safety zone. Point of reference is the rigs are parked at the safety zone, the low boys are at the safety zone, Idaho City hot shots go up to the safety zone. You know, that just using it like that.
By mid-afternoon, the RH has fallen to the mid-teens and the fire behavior increases all around the fire.
All the way up there.
Most of the day, the drift smoke from the entire fire was camouflaging wood tick and good luck. This area started burning later in the day, developed a column. Hence, that was why Ops, in my mind, took the helicopter recon, because I couldn't determine where the fire was down here because of the smoke.
What I told Greg and Jaron basically right before they got on the helicopter, said, hey, get in there and just get a good solid look. If it is getting close to that bottom of wood tick, or if it has crossed, I think we should move those low boys.
Greg Birch, myself, and Division Alpha got on the helicopter in Moyer Meadow. And the first thing we wanted to look at was the slop that was going on in Division Alpha. And talked to the crews on air to ground, told them what they had out there. They had great air support and started getting ground personnel in there to get around those spots. It was doable. We could pick it up. We continued to fly the fire, look at where it was going, how it was progressing. Like Jeff said, this was picking up quite a bit. They didn't have real good visibility in there, so we were able to get down underneath the smoke and take a look, and it was getting very close to the bottom of Wood Tick Creek, very close. So we came up, we flew over, looked at DP3, talked to the individuals on air to ground, talked to DeMasters on air to ground who had just come up, who was another one of the operations sections chief, and told him to keep punching that bigger. Flew back down into Wood Tick, took another look at it, and I think at that time both of us had kind of an impending sense of urgency that, yeah, we need to start getting those things out of there. Landed at Moyer Meadow. That's when Greg said, hey, we need to go get those low boys out of there. So I took off, and that was kind of the start of things.
The fire crosses Wood Tick Creek and runs upslope with the wind to the ridgeline.
cruised all the way down, tied into Cardoza here at the end of his indirect piece that those guys punched in. Said, hey, grab a mod, come up here. And I don't know, Brian, if I said safety zone or if I said parking area. I don't know. But
see what
I
you
said,
can do, basically. Pick up spots, burn the road.
In our quest to make that spot as big as we could make it, that road into Squaw Board Meadows, the 2-track, we had pushed that shut at one point. You got to make room for the stuff that you're pushing. We'd been told earlier that we needed to keep that open, but nobody had put any kind of priority on Winter House. And then it just seemed like, all of a sudden people start rolling in. Next thing I know, I got, rigs all over.
The fire spreads into Good Luck Creek. The Up Valley fire run they were anticipating is happening, but not in the drainage they expected. At the head of Good Luck is the parking area. The ops trainee arrives to confirm the order of moving the lowboys and sees that the road to Squaw Board Meadow has debris blocking it.
So he opened that road back up. You got there and I said, there's a road going out of the area where the dozer's working that goes into a giant meadow. If things get bad, we can get everybody in there. And I said to go drive down and check it out to make sure we could get those bigger rigs down there.
And I'm driving down the road, and the first thing that popped through my mind is I'm wasting my time. There's freaking nothing out here. I mean, she just looked thick. And then all of a sudden you pop out right about the same time you're thinking of it, and there's a really nice meadow there.
At the same time that the 2-track to Squaw Board Meadow was being checked out, the lowboy evacuation out Road 020 begins.
Then the word came, okay, let's move them. Let's get them moved. Had a safety officer had driven the road just a few minutes before and said, there's ash on the road, but it's you still got clear air. I looked at the safety officer and I asked him, hey, would you mind leading these guys out? And what I didn't want to happen is what exactly happened. I don't know who I turned around to talk to. I just wanted the safety officer to just drive the road, just make another good pass and make sure, because he's in a Mitsubishi something, he can scoot through there. I remember when I turned back around, I could see the safety officer heading up the road, and that first lowboy was right on him and around the corner they were going. And it's one of those things where you just kind of like go, you didn't want that.
Well, and right about that time when they got down there, Greg Birch had drove down right at that point and said, hey, you haven't sent that lowboy yet, have you? And we're like, yeah, we did. The safety officer called like
not even a minute later.
20 seconds later after Greg Birch showed up, said, yep, fire's across the road, we can't get through.
The hotshot soup returns from Squaw Board Meadow and briefs his crew that Squaw Board is a real safety zone here. He then joins the ops chief, ops trainee, and division soup who are involved with the immediate threat of getting the lowboy back up the road and out of harm's way. The dozer is sent to create a quick turnaround for the lowboy, but it is not necessary, as the lowboy driver is already backing up the road. The ops chief then heads towards Moyer Meadow to block any more resources from coming to the parking area.
And the wind was pushing the fire kind of away from them, but the slope was pushing it right at them. It was somewhat head fire coming up the hill at them.
And at that point, it was heavy black smoke rolling over the top of us. It was coming. And I started walking up behind the lowboy, guiding him, hand signaling him back up the road to DP3. Pretty much spun the whole way back up. And an 18-wheel truck, he was going hard trying to get back up that hill. And I'm watching the stuff down below us, and I'm wondering if we're gonna get him in there, because it's like I said, you see orange down on the timber below us, and you can start feeling blasts of heat coming up the hillside. Got him up there, and he got to a certain point and started spinning, and he couldn't push anymore. But he pushed far enough in there that he got the truck out of the road.
The ROS said 80 chains per hour. That was the average. Average from the bottom to here was 80. That's like running 3 miles in a certain time. Sprint for 5 minutes, walk for 5. That's how the fire did. It would go in pulses, moving 100 yards, a wall of fire, 100 yards rapidly. That was a vicious-looking thing.
And the plan in my head was, I've got all these people scattered in this drop point, and some of them are just coming in, and some of them have been here for a little bit. It looks like for right now, the way the fire's going, we're going to be able to back these low boys in, get everybody rallied up, and then go, hey, I don't know what what you've been told. This is not a safety zone. We're all going to go either to Moyer, which was still in my head the primary place to go.
Me too.
Let's just get this low boys backed into this drop point, get everybody loaded up, and go back to Moyer.
I copy. I got everybody here at the safety zone and just trying to figure out about that meadow or what now, but I kind of agree with you. It's kind of going north of us right now. Yeah, if it stretch north, goes to the north and east of us, then we might be okay in there. So keep an eye. Yeah, Greg, if we get one wind shift, it's going to be here. I think we better move you guys out. I'll head them back to the meadow right now, the meadow you landed in. Either that or we got to go to the green meadow right now, but we got to do something. Yeah, I drove up that road. If you want to get people coming up the road, I think we got a little bit of time to... Griff, head out, back to the meadow. Load everybody up now.
Come on, boys.
Meadow, copy.
It seemed like the wind slacked a little bit, or maybe it finally just got aligned with the terrain.
There's a lot of fire below us coming up the hill.
But all of a sudden, the column just stood straight up, and that's when the jet engine sound came on and the sky started going dark, and it was time to go.
And within seconds, you needed to either drive to Moyer or you were going to be cut off from the road. That's how fast it was. So like, just getting on the radio telling everybody to go to Moyer Meadow, and you look down the road and Moyer Meadow the fire was already across Moyer Meadow. That wasn't an option.
Okay, say again, Brian. We're sending everybody to the green meadow that I went to. They're not going to make it to you right now. Okay, yeah, let's get to the green meadow, and I'll get all the other trucks turned around. Nobody else will come down. All right.
So now we couldn't go to China Springs, we couldn't go to Moyer Meadow, and Squaw Board Meadow Road was next in line to get cut off from the fire. It was like, so we needed to move now to Squaw Board.
And now it started time to just start grabbing people, basically, yelling at them to just follow, pointing at Idaho City's rigs and yelling at this point to follow those rigs, because looking from what I'm seeing, the whole world looked like it was on fire at this point.
Good, yep. Go, Brian. I got a whole convoy following you. We're going to leave the low boys here in the safety zone, but I need you to let me know when you get a good spot out there. It might be wet, so just get out in the middle.
All three of us were screaming at everybody, follow Idaho City Hot Shots buggies, follow the buggies, follow the buggies. Because in my head I thought, we just follow the buggies right out to the meadow, everybody will be fine. And I had every intention of being the last one out of there with these guys, but you had maybe a minute to make up your mind to follow the buggies or not, or the road was going to get cut off. And about half the rigs followed the buggies initially. Then it looked like some people were going to stay. And then I left. You guys came in with a couple more folks seconds after that, I think.
Yeah, and I think a lot of this has to do with the fact that I think the people that were coming into this really late, I think had the attitude they were driving into a safety zone at that drop point.
I mean, if you were just driving by at a glance, coming up from camp, you would have no idea that the road leading out of that parking area went to a giant meadow, because you couldn't see it through the timber. So I think a lot of people, perception, lack of intel, whatever, if you see a dozer working right there and two lowboys parked and a bunch of, people standing there talking, looking at maps, why wouldn't you think that that's where you should go if things get bad, right?
Everyone showed up literally in just enough time to have to turn around and run away. But to try to get them to follow you down this crazy overgrown tunnel of timber was difficult. And it probably wouldn't have been for me too. If I didn't know Brian or Jaron and somebody I didn't know was yelling at me to go down this road and I'd just gotten there, I can see how it would have been hard.
So I was probably 50 yards from where the dozer finally parked. I watched him crawling off of his vehicle, and there was kind of a mass confusion. Vehicles driving down there. I'm still yelling at people. The fuel truck driver, I just saw a couple people moving around over there, and the safety officer's vehicle and Todd Cam's vehicle, who's the dozer boss, and Tony DeMasters, who's the other ops. And at that point, I start heading down the road. I see Tony DeMasters come through, and that's it. Nobody else is coming. There's still two other vehicles that haven't come. So I call them on the radio and said they can't make it. They didn't see where we went. So I know that they're in there. I know that they've got 4 people.
Safety Garrett, you're bringing up the rear. The negative we couldn't get. Biff, come get these torches, okay?
during all the chaos, the operator feared he might hit someone in all the dust and stopped the dozer on the south side of the opening. Working with a dozer and all the noise, dust, and falling trees that entails limits your situational awareness to the immediate surroundings. The dozer boss, operator, and lowboy driver didn't know the details of Squaw Board Meadow down that road, so they stayed in the parking area. The safety officer never was aware of the road to Squaw Board Meadow, due to it being blocked while he was in the parking area.
And at some point in there, I resigned myself to the fact that my fate was sealed. I didn't know any place else to go. I was going to have to ride this out in that open area that we'd bladed open. I pulled my shelter out for the hard case, was ready to open it up if I needed to. That's when things get kind of sketchy. Because at about this time, the safety officer yells at me and says, "Hey, go down and get your truck. You can still get down there and get your car." Which hadn't crossed my mind. And I look and, yeah, sure enough, it's cool enough. So I go down and get my car and park somewhere close to where his is by the dozer.
Due to the heat and blowing embers, the dozer operator deploys his shelter for both himself and the lowboy driver, who's left his shelter in his truck. As the perimeter closer to the dozer starts burning, they move to the dozer blade for additional protection. The shelter gets noticed, and the rigs drive over to the dozer, and the dozer operator and lowboy driver are told to get in. A part of the shelter gets caught as the door of the safety officer's rig is closed, and it rips away as they drive their two SUVs around in the parking area to avoid areas of heat. At one point, the dozer boss sees that the front tire of the lowboy transport is on fire, but the surroundings are too hot at the time to risk putting it out. Between waves of heat and smoke, they even try to move the dozer away from the perimeter slash piles that are starting to burn, but the key is broken off in the ignition.
It's starting to get hot because the piles around that parking area are all burning. I'm done getting in and out of the car. We're going to sit this out. I might move a couple more places to try and find cooler spots, but we're done messing around trying to protect equipment. Turned the air conditioning on up to, turbo Arctic blast, and that car is still starting to get uncomfortable inside from the heat. It's getting hot enough to the point that I'm starting to smell the off gas of the plastic in the car. That's about the time I'm starting to hear a little bit of radio traffic about that road down to Squaw Board Meadows being open. There's still an effort to get us down there tied in with everybody else.
They told me on the radio that they had everybody in their vehicles. The safety officer told me that. So we kept talking to him. We got our vehicles back down in there. We backed up all the way down there. I honked my horn. I was talking to the safety officer. We finally were able to talk him through. I'm like, okay, come left 10 feet. Okay, come left 10 more feet. Okay, honk your horn. Okay, let me honk my horn. Okay, you see me? All right, straight ahead.
Garish took off and went out. I do remember him calling saying, "I'm clear." I shifted that car into gear and baja'd our way through and plunged through that opening. There's fire on both piles on either side of it, and it's really hot. The thing that was going through my mind is, like, where the hell am I going now? Because I don't know what's down this road. Is this just leading me back into some other place? Am I going down a dead-end road and I'm going to get stuck down here, or what's down here? Well, the fears of not knowing where I was going were dispelled. I looked at that wet meadow and I thought, okay, well, kind of wish I'd have known this was down here.
While the four are stranded in the parking area, the rest of the personnel reach the safety of Squaw Board Meadow. They prepare to fire off the edge, but it is unnecessary as Air Attack directs Type 1 helicopters in cooling the road and hitting the flanks to protect the meadow and get the four out of the parking area. Later, as things cool down somewhat, various personnel return to the parking area and between waves of choking smoke retrieve vehicles left during the evacuation, hotwire the dozer to move it into the center, and put out spots on the lowboy trailers. The lowboy transport closest to the edge only suffers some melted plastic, while the one that's tire caught fire completely burns. After dark, all personnel convoy out to China Springs Spike Camp for an after-action review.
I got to head down with that dozer doing all that stuff and pushing that site open, maybe looking at it from the point of view of like I'm making my own safety zone or place that I can go. But that salmon chalice country, that country is notorious for big fire runs when you least expect it.
You've got to over-plan your time frames. It's not like a stacks where you can just pick up a lowboy and go brrr and drive it away. It's equipment that's going to take a long time to move. Just make sure you're planning for that. For me personally, don't ever miss an opportunity to brief somebody. My plan was to brief everybody all at once. I thought I was going to have that time, and then the situation switched, and I didn't have that time. And in doing that, I missed probably lots of little times to just grab individuals. Most of the people knew they were going. The few people that didn't were probably the few people that got stuck.
For me, it's like, don't call a safety zone until it's designated a safety zone. Most people driving to it, myself included, pictured it was a safety zone. And then when you got there, you made your own assessment. To me, it was obvious it wasn't, but it still was. I was still calling it a safety zone as a point of reference. Everybody was. I think that's probably the biggest, or that's one of the big contributing factors, people staying. For me, what I would do different is when I pulled up, it was obviously triage, and engaging the fire was not an option. I was there to help these guys get people out of the way, and I briefed my crew on squaw board meadows. Myself or one of my squad bosses could have helped brief the other people while these guys were everybody was pretty busy. And just like Dan said, he wishes he would have briefed some of those folks that stayed to follow us. I wish I would have had one of my squad bosses do the same thing, because they probably had the most time.
Yeah, I think the main thing, I guess, from an ops perspective was making sure that everyone has all the information that they need. I mean, I want to be able to walk up to anybody on the fire line, wherever, and say, where's your safety zone? How long does it take you to get there? Okay, that's cut off. Where are you going now? You know what I mean? I think I probably could have done maybe a better job. I assumed probably a lot, I'd told a few people where squaw board was, and I figured a lot of people knew. And I guess, another point is, why are we above, on a mid-slope road or a road that's near the top of a ridge and the salmon breaks at 1600, at the end of August with incoming resources? I think at a certain point in time, we're always anxious to get resources here, get them plugged in, get them going. I don't think it's wise to be traveling, in hindsight, a road like that with resources that really have no idea of where things are at. So I think I would definitely be more organized and set up probably time frames and parameters for moving new personnel in and out of an area like that.
And in general, the trap I think we all fell into, air attack included, at least on my shift, was and I've talked to you about this, is a little bit of passive leadership. When I saw that parking area, I didn't like it, but I didn't say anything. We let a few things go amongst each other. I think it's just because of mutual respect and the positive outlook that a lot of us had, and the can-do attitude. But I think it's a little bit of a trap we fell in. I really enjoy getting credit for a job well done as a firefighter or a fire leadership position, and we all do. Along with that, we must, and we have, recognized that there are times we must address our errors, our mistakes, like you brought up, and we all brought up, our oversights, and we must address them like we're doing here for the upcoming firefighters and other fire leaders. Otherwise, the leadership trait of trustworthiness will not be given back to us.